Alright, well, everybody welcome to our channel. This is Smoke and Chant. And today we're going to talk about the Anunnaki. We're going to talk about theories, revelations. We've already done the smoking part, so now it's the chant. Those of you who haven't figured that out yet. So, it'll be myself and the second participant to this conversation. So, do we want to introduce ourselves as our name or code names? What are we doing?
This is Edge here. And I will take your challenge on talking about the Anunnaki.
Yeah.
I would like to also do a little bit on the Sumerians.
Right, but they tie into each other.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that we go back far enough.
Yeah. So, where do you want to start? So those of you who don't know who the Sumerians are, the Anunnaki, you should definitely reference some others. Zechariah Sitchin, one of the, I guess, core founders of this story, really. We spent the time researching it. At least for at least for this conversation. So we'll start off with the Sumerians were what? Basically their first recorded civilization. They knew things that were just uncharacteristic for their time. So they knew about our solar system, the planets, the size to proportion of the planets, you know, and so many other things. So you do some talking how you want to go with that, but the Sumerians are, for me, quite compelling. I mean, their story is no farther fetched than recent religion and Christianity, which I know we're going to offend some people, but
Flying spaghetti monster.
I mean, it's no more far-fetched than that. I mean, you're talking about a guy who can heal the blind, who can walk on water. I don't know about you. I've never seen anybody do it. Well, I take that back. I did see Chris Angel do it, but we all know that was plastic under the water. I'm not stupid.
Wires, smoke and mirrors.
So what's your knowledge of the Anunnaki and Sumerians? I don't want to do all the talking.
Well, I do need to do more research on the Anunnaki, so I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot. But with the Sumerians, I've done a little bit of digging. I know that... Sorry, that's my little minion. I know that the Sumerians were in Sodom and Gomorrah, and the places that those cities were sitting at still have traces of basically nuclear radiation, nuclear fallout to this day.
Uranium, so on.
Yeah. So, makes you think, was it God? Or was it perhaps, technology against, one faction against another?
Well,
wiping each other out? I mean...
And here's the problem with it, is that if you had an ancient civilization and you are seeing these beings, if the Bible references these chariots coming from the skies. So if you're in ancient times and these things are coming down, I mean, you would really think of them as a god. They're obviously more intelligent, by all accounts are stronger, taller,
right? I mean,
and wielding knowledge that you don't have. So I mean, obviously,
and these same pictures and things showing proof of that are on Egyptian walls in pyramids and such.
Right.
They've got helicopters, what looks like rockets, giants, Nephilim, which were in the Bible.
Yeah,
as
David
well.
and Goliath. Yeah, and so what's really interesting about that, I think, is you have occurrences that are not just from one time period. So even if it's the Hopi Indians in northern Arizona, even Egyptians, civilizations in Peru, and so on, but they all refer to these sort of watchers, and they all resemble grays. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's basically an alien. but they all resemble themselves. I mean, how do you explain that? How can you discredit something like that? Outside of everything else, sightings and all these other things, people's abductions, how can you just completely say that none of that is possible? It's all a smokescreen from the government. It's all these things, but yet, in different parts of the world, in different cave drawings, or even in Egypt, they draw these things that resemble grace. I mean, that to me is just crazy. I mean, people are that closed off to where you can have the evidence in front of your face, and yet they think it's bullshit.
I think it's willful ignorance. I mean, honestly, for over half of my own life, I knew deep down from when I was a kid that stuff like that could exist. I mean, we're in an infinite universe. It's completely 100% possible. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just how far away are they?
It's probable. More than possible.
Now, speaking about people and conspiracy theories and stuff like that, what's your take on the biggest one of all that people claim exist, which is that the Earth is flat, and that there's a treaty that stops all nations from doing anything on those continents, the North and South Pole, in order to make us never know that the Earth is actually flat because we can't blah blah blah.
My personal feeling is flat Earth is complete horseshit. That's my feeling. I think,
but I'm going
first of
to
all,
right,
but you can look at a lot of different. You can look at that however you want, really. But look at SpaceX launch, Elon Musk company, where they had the astronaut in a Tesla car, right? And they had live feed.
You know, I haven't seen.
I mean, yeah.
Should I pull that up?
It's pretty amazing, actually. You can pull it up on that one, but. So, while he's doing that, so Antarctica, interesting that you brought that up. So, recently I stumbled across an interview. There it is, right there. Actually, 4 down.
Amazing pick.
So put it on mute so that way we can talk. So what's really interesting about this is you brought up Antarctica. Well, Buzz Aldrin, Apollo 11 astronaut. Look at that. I mean, that's believable. That's believable. We're looking at the Tesla astronaut car in space, by the way. Elizabeth Cook. Tickle noggers. Anyways. So Antarctica and Buzz Aldrin. So that big old movie, Apollo 13, I think it was,
yep,
right?
13.
Anyway, so he's gone on record of saying that he's encountered aliens. And the South Pole and North Pole, what's really interesting about that is, do you know a lot of governments have bases on those poles? Look how large that rocket is. But they actually have military bases there, and they, from what I've read and I've heard, it has to do with the fact that they have diamonds and suspected oil reserves there. Now, there's a treaty there saying they will not mine until 2052, I believe. Somebody can correct me on that. Maybe it's 2050, but there's no way in hell that somebody's, going to believe that. I mean, if you have a military force up there, you have a military force up there for something. John Kerry's been up there. I mean, why would you travel there? Very bizarre. And then you have all those conspiracies about there being pyramids there that are covered, and at one time it's been proven that it was not always ice. It was a tundra at some point or another.
I remember seeing that there was actually a map from Columbus's time showing South America and Antarctica connected, or I think it was Africa. But it showed a shoreline with resources and places to get stuff, with trees and shit like that. Meaning it wasn't always cut off like it is now.
Look at that. Look at that. Rockets coming down backwards. Look at that. You know how the other ones used to just go off into the ocean? Because that really makes sort of sense to contaminate the ocean. But anyways, that's a different podcast. Tesla, the actual man Tesla, that's a podcast in and of itself. What an amazing person that guy was. anyways, we were way off track here. So Sumerians and then the Anunnaki. So the Sumerians, first civilization, created so many things: 30-day lunar calendars, time, 24-hour time period. They did a lot of geometry, agriculture, and so they, instead of taking credit for it, they give credit to the beings or the gods that they claim had came down from the planet Neribu. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. Hebrew. Anyways. And they shared this knowledge, and they basically manipulated our DNA and, sort of created hybrid humans, which is funny because they've never found this quote-unquote missing link. That's because there's not a missing link. We're not related to apes. Their posture is different. Their finger.
Right. There's no other creature on the planet that's created like us. We were built for violins and tedious.
Yeah.
Not monotonous, but like delicate.
Fine things.
Delicate,
driving,
fine.
typing, driving.
Right.
Grabbing in a smaller level. And they've never found the missing link because there isn't one. There's nothing to find. And it's not that far-fetched. If you think about it, most dog breeds are only here because of human intervention.
Right.
They weren't like that.
That's true.
So if you can make hybrids of dogs and cats. They have that Savannah cat, right? It's a hybrid of an actual African Savannah cat with a domestic. So it's not that far-fetched to think that something that was more intelligent than us could play around with DNA. I mean, we're doing it now. I mean, right now we are growing ears and various body parts with stem cells. So how is it so far-fetched to think that somebody that is more advanced can't do it? I mean,
Did you
it's
hear
very
that I don't know if it's a gag, but there's actual articles out talking about they're going to try and bring the mammoth back by 2020.
Yeah, we talked about that a couple of days ago.
Yeah. I was also wondering too with the Sumerians, because the Anunnaki were here for gold. I need to research because I'm wondering, are there a lot of mines and things and dug pits in the side of mountains, showing proof that those were the resources
That's a good
were
question.
harvested?
Another thing I thought about the other day was, you go back to the Egyptians. We're bouncing around a little bit, but it's the first podcast, so it is what it is. But where did the pharaohs live? Honestly, no one has anybody ever had that discussion?
No,
They
they
didn't
just
live
always
in-
talk about where they were buried.
Yeah, but and so we know that the pyramids were not used as tombs until the diagnostic Egyptians. But many people, Brian Forrester, I mean, there's all kinds of references you can look up. John Anthony West, Graham Hancock. These are all university-based educators, by the way. But anyways, they weren't used for tombs until the dynastic Egyptians came in and basically took it over. But before that, who built them? How did they do it? But where did the pharaohs live? I'm assuming in the sands on a, I mean, that'd be interesting. Let me pull that up.
I'm going to kind of see if I can pull anything.
The pyramids were never intended to be tombs, is what I'm getting at. It was something much more than that. Yeah, try that one right there. What did the...
Okay,
you can go
so
to
they're saying they did have a royal palace.
Okay. So maybe it's just been destroyed over the millennia.
Complexes. So I guess there's still... See this here? There's a... What we're looking at is a royal complex, and it's just arches, but it looks like 90% of the building's been taken out.
But look at the brickwork there. I'm no masonry or anything, but look at the brickwork there, okay? And then look at the brickwork. Go above. Go look at the brickwork on that pyramid.
Looks identical.
No, it doesn't. You're in the complete opposite direction of where I'm trying to explain.
Well, what I...
Look at the sort of, it's another interesting thing.
Well, no, you're right.
It's wholly different, right?
Yeah, these look like
And
gigantic.
so these are, and maybe we'll reference this in the video if we can, but as we follow along, but they, I mean, just look at, take PhDs and universities and education out of it, okay? Just use your own eyeballs. Look at the work on that, and you compare that to the pyramid. It's entirely different. Entirely different. That looks like garbage. And then you go to the pyramid. Look at that.
Yeah, and they're saying that this is where they lived.
Yeah, wouldn't they have designed themselves some better looking places to live than something that really wasn't used for anything that we understand, at least. Now
like
the new theory is that the pyramids were used because of all these underground tunnels that Brian Forrester and some others have located. Actually, it's been well known, but most people don't know it now. But anyways, you're talking about a massive underground tunnel system, and it's intricate. It's not every tunnel is going north, south, east, and west, and yet nobody knows what it's for. And one thing that holds true in all of those scenarios with the tunnels on the inside of the pyramid is that they reverberate sound.
Okay, so what I pulled up is they considered this like a pyramid in India called the Sri Padmanabhaswamy Temple. Now, this thing is very, very interesting. It's more like a temple, but it's kind of built in the Egyptian time frame, around when the Sphinx. Well, anyway, there's a door. There was actually a couple different doors down there that were completely shut off to the public because there was no way to open the door. They couldn't figure it out. It seemed to have a lot of different different things. Well, anyway, they were able to open all the doors except for one, and the one that they can't open looks cryptic as hell. Now, I don't know how to explain.
Well,
I
don't understand how they could say they can't open it. Put a fucking sledgehammer through it.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what the door is made of.
Throw a grenade in there.
Well, I remember I should read the rest of this article again. I'd have to go back through it, but there's something behind a superstition too on why they're not opening it.
Yeah, they think it's like the gate of hell or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
I guess if you think it's something like that, you're probably not going to open it. So. Yeah, it's also sacred ground.
That's another thing about religion too, is that every religion has the same concepts. If you do good, you get this. If you do bad, you get that.
Well, what I don't understand is how does every religion think it's the correct one and then justify killing the rest of them because they're not?
That includes you too, Christians. I know you hate to hear it, but it's the truth. Look up the Crusades if you don't believe me.
It's kind of like these Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm sorry, I don't mean to single you out. They come to my door. Now, just a little backstory of myself. I grew up Jehovah's Witness, was for about 10 years, not of choice, family. But now that I am an adult, I have researched it, looked into the history. I see the corruptness at the top levels when it comes to the owners and such, how they rent out the buildings. Anyways, I'm getting too deep into them. When you guys come to my door, I want you to know something. I'm going to spread the word. People, start doing this. When a Jehovah's Witness or a Christian or a radical Islamist comes to your door, I don't care what religion they are. If they're trying to tell you about their religion, they better be able to tell you everything about how their religion was created, what its purpose is, and every single thing in between. Because if they're not able to do that, and I mean not down to the nitty-gritty, but at least a rough sketch of what's going on, then they shouldn't be your teacher. I ask Jehovah's Witnesses when they come to my door, how did your religion begin? How is it managed? How is it run? How is it operated?
Let me go get some more pizza.
And these people have no clue whatsoever about their own origin on what they're trying to preach. And it makes me sad because they're spending their entire Sunday trying to convince people of something they're not even sure of themselves because they don't have all the facts. I guess I'm a very large skeptic when it comes to a lot of things, so you'll hear me not talk very often. Sometimes I'll sound stupid. Call me out on it. I don't care. I'll go do a little bit of learning and come back with a better head on my shoulders. That's the way we are. We're human. We're supposed to accept our mistakes. But yes, if you come to my door, you better know what you're talking about.
You know where my stance on religion is? Anything that's sort of like the Vatican, for example. You have supposedly 56 miles of different books and information that's away, like cut off from society. And the only way you can actually look at it, get this, is if you are not even somebody in college. You have to be for like a professor level, right? And whatever you're wanting to study has to be pertinent to your field. Meaning, so if you're into science, you can't be looking for history, as an example. And not only that, but you have to request what you want to check on. So it's not a situation where you can just go through and like graze through. Holy shit! This is this. This is that. You're requesting what you're wanting to learn, which means you have to know what's there to request it. So what are you hiding? Nothing previous to 1939, which goes back to World War II. We won't get into that one. That one's a long one. But any religion that has secrets doesn't seem to have the best interest of everybody, because you shouldn't have any secrets to hide.
Honestly, you should go deeper into that, just because of what I was talking about a second ago. Because they need to know what you were talking about to me out on the porch. That's interesting. I mean, I'm going to look all this stuff up myself.
Yeah, so it's been well documented about the connections to the Vatican and the Nazi Party, World War II. In fact, a lot of escaping Nazis were there in Rome and various parts. But the Vatican actually took care of some of these fleeing Nazis. This is well documented too, by the way. This isn't sort of a conspiracy or any of that. And there's some ideas behind it. Some people say the Vatican didn't want to be overthrown. So when the Germans would have taken over Rome during their march through, or whatever how you want to say it, but basically they didn't want to be overthrown or taken over, so they just kind of supported the Nazi Party. So maybe it was done in a means to survive. I don't know, but there's definitely a connection there, and I'm sure it has some sort of relevance of why you can't request documents around World War II time periods. They don't want people to know these things. Yep. And then that leads you into the other concept, which really is funny because it ties back all of what we've just talked about, and it puts us right back into the Sumerians and the Anunnaki, which is, why the hell does the Vatican have a 16-foot statue of a pine cone? And why is there pine cones on their staffs? And this resorts back to the third eye.
Which some
this
of those
comes
same
back
staffs
to
were
the
used in Egypt as well.
So this comes back to the Anunnaki and the Sumerians yet again. See, and that's what's interesting about this topic. You can go as far away as you want and still find your way back. There's so much there. And it's amazing how people dismiss it. I mean, there's tablets that show the planets in their proportion. And another thing that I thought was interesting is the Sumerians listed that Earth was the 7th planet. Now, all of us know that we're the 3rd planet from the sun, but Zechariah Sitchin, in his wonderful intelligence, was able to figure out that if you're coming into our solar system and in from the opposite side, count out your planets, we would legitimately be the 7th planet. How else can these people know that? I don't know the exact numbers, but if you look at Copernicus, from the Sumerians to him, it was quite a distance. So I was telling them that one of the beautiful things about Zechariah Sitchin was he was the first to document that Earth was the 7th planet. Now, living on Earth, you would say, well, that's wrong because we're the 3rd planet from the sun. But if you're coming into the system from the outside in, count your planets out. Earth is the 7th planet if you start at Pluto.
That's true.
So, credit to Zechariah Sitchin. He's no longer around, but very, very intelligent man. But, the Sumerians, really the first civilization. Some people believe that they have ties to Babylonian, which is, it's all around the same areas, Mesopotamia and so on.
Wow, this guy's got a lot of books.
He does, and also he was brought up, I believe, Catholic, if I recall. And it's funny, is if you see, that would be interesting, Lost Book of Enki.
I'd like to get a book
so
on
we
the
really
Emerald
should
Tablets.
explain, because we've got off topic. So listen, so the Sumerians revert back to the Anunnaki, who were gods that came down from the heavens, and they were here mining for gold. And being as brilliant as they were, they eventually realized a couple things. One, that this planet was hard on their body, so they couldn't stay forever. And then two, they didn't want to do the hard work. Who the hell does? We don't even want to do hard work. So the story goes that they, with one of the gods, Enki, and his sister, who were sort of scientists for the Anunnaki, created a hybrid hybrid American, sorry, for those of you in the other countries. Hybrid human, and that's why you've never found the missing link, because it was genetically modified, which isn't far-fetched to think nowadays, but of course, when they, discovered the Sumerian stuff in the 1800s, it's pretty far-fetched at that point. People at that time would have thought, the only people who could do any sort of changing with anything would be God. So, but anyways, they created humans to do slave work, really. They wanted them working in the mines to get gold. They needed gold back on their home planet in Neribu. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. Neribu, whatever. Because their atmosphere was falling apart. And it's well known and documented that gold does protect against radiation. Why do you think NASA's satellites and all their equipment is foiled with gold? It's a great resistant from radiation. And a lot of things happen, but it ties us into the Bible with the fact that when they would come back, they absolutely were mesmerized by human women. And I agree with you. For all of those that are not into women, sorry. We're just talking about our opinion. I love women. I love their bodies. Yeah. So I'm definitely Anunnaki, for sure. I really love women. I love their body. And they mated with him, and that's what kind of gave credence to the David and Goliath scenarios. You had the Nephilim, right?
Mm-hmm. The Bible even
refers to it. And, the whole story is, you can look more into it. We're not going to talk about every detail, but the fact is, there is a huge amount of similarities with the Sumerian stories that tie into the Bible, including the flood, including the sort of the death of a king 3 days later, resurrected.
Speaking of the flood,
Oh, you're good.
this has really been fucking bothering me. If the Great Flood happened,
It did happen.
right, but was it the entire Earth?
Nobody knows.
The
But
reason I say that is, isn't there some Chinese documents showing they existed before, during, and after? How would they not be part of the Bible? And what if it was just that area that was flooded?
no, because they've taken core samples from Antarctica, and they can tell that there was a rapid temperature change.
Are we all ancestral
it's already been-
babies of Noah then?
I don't know. Then
Same as we would be
that's a kind
ancestral
of a
babies
paradox,
from Adam and Eve.
because right, and it does tie. So if you look at the Sumerian description, type it up real quick. But I think it is Adumi, which is Adamu. But I think that's where you get Adam in.
I remember it was the first genetically created human.
Yeah.
We're in creation story.
Yeah. No, don't even do that. Just do some of the descriptions. So the second one down, the original. Yeah, there you go. But the Sumerians talk about the first hybrid human, which they called Anunnaki, I believe. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but whatever. By the way, when you watch this podcast, listen to it. Eventually, it'll be watch. You really ought to smoke inch and yeah, look.
All right, here it is. The first man was created in Eden, a Sumerian word which meant flat terrain in the epic Gilgamesh. Eden is mentioned as the Garden of the Gods and is located somewhere in Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers.
Right, and this is where the Anunnaki built their civilization, almost like a home base. And at that time, humans initially were designed not to reproduce, but as the demand came higher to work in the mines, they would have genetically modified our bodies to be able to reproduce, which actually ties into a couple other things. Think about how many babies die at childbirth. You'd actually look up the numbers, but it's very high. Now, if you compare that into nature, I guarantee you the numbers don't add up. It's almost like a French bulldog, right? It cannot have a natural birth. You have to have a cesarean.
I did not know
And think
that.
about how many women have cesareans nowadays. So it makes you think. And also makes sense for people who can't have kids, right? If your genetics were modified to not be able to reproduce, and then was then changed again to reproduce, who's to say that some of that genetics for not being able to reproduce was it passing on, which would explain why some people cannot have kids.
That is true, and there is no reason that scientists have been able to come up with as to why they're not. I mean,
Or
low
they'll just say,
testosterone levels.
Yeah, certain things, but that's all.
Why
that's your
are they
genetics.
genetically disposed to being that way is what we're trying to talk about, not
Right.
the symptom, the cause.
And yeah, so it's the Sumerians is such a huge, vast amount of knowledge, and most Christians will say, well, it was the devil. Well, I got news for you. This existed before that devil concept came about by like almost 3,000 years. So to say that the Sumerians are wrong because they came first, but they were wrong and Christianity is correct, that seems very, very strange to me. How can you dismiss it?
Well, religion
And this ties me into a lot of other things. You look at, and we're not going to do it today because I'll talk too long, but Tesla, who was looked at as a quack, was mainly part of the reason why he was ousted was because he referred to some of his experiments and coming into contact with somebody from Mars and referencing alien contact and stuff, so people shunned him. But this is also a guy who created pretty much everything we use today. Remotes, wireless, all the wireless technology. He finally, the Supreme Court overthrew that Marconi radio patent and gave it back to Tesla because it was really his. But that's all we're going to say on that because I'll talk too long. But
I'll also say, just for the religion topic, people look up the Council of Nicaea and go ahead and just dig a little bit deeper and wonder why they removed books from the Bible, and go read the damn books.
Well,
so
the
that
Book
you
of
understand
Enoch
the
was
bigger
one of them.
picture of the Bible.
The Book of Enoch was removed from the Bible,
Yeah, he walked with God. Why would you remove that?
which is a story from the Sumerians, by the way, and it also ties into Moses. The story of Moses, right?
Right. Yeah, I don't understand it. This is a book that's basically a missing link. It's a tie-in between two other stories. Why rip it out?
And
It's because they had an agenda. They wanted people to blindly follow.
do you know modern day Bibles have taken out, and I think it's in Genesis, somebody can quote me on it, but even some of the King James versions still had it, but when it said that we made man in our likeness, not his or whatever, or God's likeness, but it said we made them in our likeness. So one of the theories is maybe all this time we've been looking for aliens, we are the aliens. And these grays that we referred to earlier in the cast, those were the Ajiji, which the Anunnaki brought as pretty much slaves, and they had a sort of a war amongst themselves, which annihilated most of these grays, and they called them the Ajiji back then. But that's what prompted them to engineer modern human. You know, modern archaeology, and kudos and credits to Brian Foster, because I'm no sort of intelligent, educated man, but what you watch his videos, you can learn a lot. I mean, they've found skeletons in Peru with blonde hair. Modern day scientists would say that had to come from the northern aspects of the hemisphere. Well, Peru ain't in the northern part. That ain't up in Ireland and, Western Europe of Germany and so on. So how do you explain that? And also the correlation between these ancient skeletons in Peru having connectivity to skeletons in Australia and in the Americas before modern Native Americans were there? It was very strange. I don't think we really know anything, to be honest. We're still learning and learning and learning.
And have you watched some of these videos that have been popping up?
I don't think those are real. I've
Yeah.
seen those pictures of the Nephilim.
It's hard to, with how good people are nowadays with makeup and makeup artists and stuff. I've seen one where it was a fake mermaid and it looked fucking real as hell. But after a while, these always get debunked. I mean, me and you alone have lived through, 10 apocalypses that should have killed us? People always predicting the future.
Well, that's just
Some guy in
scare
Austin
tactics.
kept doing that shit.
Yeah, that's just scare tactics. I've seen the pictures. I have a hard time believing that you could quiet down that many people, because obviously if that was like one of the only skeletons you ever found, it's not going to be out in a museum for all of us to see.
Right.
But how are you going to silence that many people? I mean, an excavation takes, I'm assuming, I don't know this, but I'm assuming quite a bit of people to work. So how are you going to all of a sudden shut all those people down? I mean, seems a little bizarre.
I mean, there's just so many pictures, though. I mean, some of these actually might be
It could be Photoshop,
real, but
too.
it could be Photoshop.
What is the picture of the chick? What was that all about?
It's probably some fake ghost thingy. We're on one of those kinds of
Caught on Real Mermaid.
Real mermaid. By the way,
Personally,
we are
looking
just
at
on Google search, guys, with giant bones found, and that's pretty much all we
2017
got.
is what it
Yeah,
says.
2017.
I am not impressed with her breasts. I want bigger breasts on my mermaids.
I'm not impressed with how
I want bigger.
pixelated this is.
It
looks like
but I
it
want
looks like
bigger
Minecraft.
breasts on my mermaids. When I see a mermaid, I want some big old tickle moggers. So.
By the way, guys, we are not always going to be serious. We're going to have some podcasts that are absolutely fucking retarded. But
yeah. Well, this is the first
this
one.
is the first one, so this is an excellent topic.
I think smoking. What did we come up with? Smoking Chant.
Yeah, look, I pull up giant bones, and there's David
and Goliath.
again.
Yeah, that was me back in the day. It needs to show my appendage because
and
it
of
definitely
course,
has a big one.
of course, at the bottom it says 333.
No way.
1333. So
How crazy.
there you go.
Well,
Number
that ties
9.
into the Tesla thing. We're not going to get into.
Yeah, number 9. But
That's too long of a conversation. Got a random picture of Jaws. Hold on, go back down. What is that skull? Keep going down. Go down. What is the fuck?
Holy, this right here?
No, I was talking about that one over there. It looks like a.
Oh, this?
Yeah, no. The other one, just below that on the left side. Left side. Nope. The one down a row. Thank you, right there.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, yeah, that's
What the hell is? You didn't click on it. Now that's got to be a Neanderthal. There ain't no way that thing is.
Yeah, I mean, look at on the lobe.
Look at the
brow.
slanted
Wow.
eyes. I mean, the eyeballs on that thing had to have been huge. That's a huge mandible too. Look at that. Holy moly. That's pretty crazy.
Well, this makes me also think. You know how they always say that we were smaller when we were, as we have progressed as human beings, we're progressively getting taller. That guy right there doesn't look like he would be under 6 foot, according to the bones. That looks like a big son of a bitch. I mean,
yeah, and he's almost got like a couple bones on the side where you would normally see like an ear.
yeah, it looks like it's a flat, kind of like a cone.
Maybe screenshot that. We can include that on the video.
Okay, I'll save the photo.
Yeah, just save it, and then we can come back.
A reference to where I got it, and all that good stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, and the purpose of this podcast, just so you know, is there's really no purpose behind it other than smoking, the wonderful Mary Jane, and eating good food, and then having an intellectual conversation, and also doing something different. Not sticking into the 9 to 5 matrix that we live in today. Finding out and exploring with our own brains. You know, some of the most brilliant people of our past were not that well educated. You look at Einstein; he was smarter than the teacher was, so he was, you know, they thought he was had a learning disability. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Look at all these people, artists. You know, guys like Leonardo da Vinci, or there's too many to
don't
name.
get me started on ADHD and all that stuff.
Again, another podcast. So, anyways, I think we're gonna wrap it up on this first smoke and chant. So we're just gonna. I'm gonna go with smoke, and you're gonna go with chant. That's gonna be our names on here. I'm gonna go smoke. You're gonna be chant, and
perfect.
Smoke and chant out.
See you next time, everybody.
If you don't like the podcast, suck it.